All right. I can't let this go. So this is going to be part 2 of Eternal Security. Part 2 of Eternal Security. And if you didn't see part 1, that's okay. They're kind of their own things, so don't sweat it. But you can look for it if you want. So part 2 of Eternal Security. I can't let this go. So tonight, or now, this is my second one I've done tonight. We are going to go to a Bible story that is, I think, definitely in the top 4 Bible stories in the whole Bible. There's like the crucifixion and the resurrection, and then like the virgin birth, Elijah versus the prophets of Baal, and then this story, Genesis 15. So go find Genesis 15. So I'll do it quick and dirty. God appears to Abram. He's called Abram still at this point, and says, I'm going to give you a kid. And that kid is going to bless the whole world. And Abram's like, yeah, God, I don't know. That sounds a little far-fetched even coming from you. How can I possibly know that that's going to happen? Abram's like, don't sweat it, bro. Go get me these animals. And he lists off these animals. And Abram's like, I know where you're going with this, God. Okay, so, because God doesn't even tell him what to do with the animals, but Abram knows, right? So he slaughters the animals, and he cuts them in pieces, and he lays the pieces like in an aisle across from each other, right? And at this point in the story, the 21st century Westerners are like, what on God's green internet is happening here? Okay? And, when I first heard the first sermon I heard on this story, it was, the point of the story was that Abram was worshiping and he didn't know what was going on. So the point is like, don't allow the fact that you don't know what's going on or that you're in a dark place to stop you from worshiping. And then, in the story, Abraham has to drive off the buzzard. So, we're meant to drive away the enemy who's trying to distract us from worship. So that was what I was told. But if you look at the text, it's clearly not worship. There's no altar or anything like that. So this is not worship, okay? And before I continue, I'm sure a lot of you already know all this stuff. Maybe some of you don't, but either way, I think you'll find it edifying, okay? So let me continue with the story. So Abram slaughters the animals. He splits the animals makes this aisle, right? And then he falls asleep. Now, what is going on here? So apparently, not apparently, but as you probably know, back in the day, when people made a covenant with each other, they didn't have like paper and ink. Here are the terms and conditions. Bob's your uncle. Sign here. Thanks very much. Have a nice day. It wasn't like that, right? So they would have, I don't know if other cultures were like this, but ancient Near East, they had a bunch of covenant ceremonies. Okay, and we see a lot of them in the Bible, right? We see a lot of them, and this was one of them, right? So now maybe you see where I'm going. Okay, let me turn that off. Yeah, you can see me. So what is happening here is in one of the covenant rituals, the two parties, or however many parties, would take the animals, slaughter them, cut them in half, and then make this like aisle, right, between the carcasses. And then the parties of the covenant would walk between the carcasses up the aisle between these body parts. And what they were saying in effect was, if I don't deliver, okay, I'll turn that on. If I don't deliver, if I break my word, if I don't fulfill the terms of the covenant, may what has happened to the animals happened to me. Okay? Are you feeling it? So, Abram does this. He sets up this ritual. And he's 100 years old, so he's exhausted, right? And he passes out, like deep sleep. And then at some point during the night, I don't know if it's a dream, a nightmare, a vision, if it's something that physically happened, I don't know. But it says that a deep darkness and a terror fell on Abram. And then he looks up, he's probably barely awake. He sees a flaming torch and a fire pot pass between the pieces. Man, so who are the parties in this covenant that God is making? Abram and God, right? But who of the parties are passing between the pieces? Well, the flaming torch and fire pot, it's what theologians call a theophany. And what that means is a physical revelation, a physical manifestation of God's presence, of his glory. Like, think the pillar of cloud, the pillar of fire, the Shekinah glory, all that stuff. Theophanies, right? So the theophany of God, the presence of God, is passing between the pieces. Abram, meanwhile, is barely awake. He's not involved in the ceremony at all. So God is in effect saying, if I break my promise to you, Abram, and to you, and through you to all of your offspring, including all Christian believers, if I break my promise to you, may what has been done to the animals be done to me. And so, dear Christian, can you lose your salvation? Only if God can die can you lose your salvation. If God can die, you can lose your salvation. If God can cease to be, you can lose your salvation. If God can cease to exist anymore, you can lose your salvation. Brothers and sisters, if that don't convince you, I don't know what will. I love you. I'm done. I'm spent. God bless you. Peace of Christ to you. Love you all.